Hello again, I'm here with Jonathan Sampson, and you're one of those people that actually goes on the web a lot and has conversations with people on the very, very active things like Reddit and Stack Overflow. And what do you do there?
I don't typically go on the web a lot. I just rarely get off of the web. I stay on it pretty much like everybody else all the time. I'm super active on like Stack Overflow and Twitter, and Reddit's more of an addiction, I guess, than a job obligation. But no, it's basically trying to get a feel for what people are expecting out of the browser today. What are developers trying to do that they're finding very difficult in a browser? You know, we've been making a lot of efforts over the past few years. We kind of want to get a sense for how they're registering in the community, and so some developers may have had difficulty achieving, a high degree of interop in the past. And of course, we want to understand: is that getting better? Is that trend line coming downward? The amount of effort to make something work cross-browser, getting a sense for just what people are playing with. We've got people out there. Like Anna Tudor, who's just like finding out these most brilliant ways to break Edge and other browsers by doing the most complicated CSS stuff in the world. Absolutely astounding, and we want to see it first and start to try and pave the way to make stuff like that work whenever it starts to become more mainstream. And so, yeah, it's a lot of just moving about the community and seeing what people are doing.
So how do we break that concept of, I find the trend is in the community to impress each other with cool stuff more than actually building things on the web. Mm-hmm. So the message of like, look, I just fixed that to work across browsers is massively downvoted, where it's like, okay, here's a 3D graph with 15 waterfalls and pixelated things in the background and a video playing at the same time.
Yeah.
You just mentioned with Anna that she's doing like really out there experimentation. But how do we get developers kind of more excited about building things for end users again? Because it seems like to me we're a very small crowd that talks to each other rather mm-hmm. than solving problems by now.
Yeah, we see that like in just in accessibility. I mean, that's not a very sexy topic, but it's this type of thing. Just a little bit of effort goes a long way. We had it just in the office yesterday. We were having a discussion about hearing impaired users and stuff like that, and how do they perceive and interact with media and stuff, and visually impaired users and stuff. And it's like, no one is really giving these individuals a voice in this whole discussion. Just the other day, someone was listening to a podcast and he was asking like, can blind people even go online and stuff? And it's like, well, of course they can. Like we've got really amazing screen readers and stuff, and it's like, how do we make ground on areas that just aren't super attractive? Like they're not super flashy. We're not talking about really radical canvas, displays and stuff. And it's in some of these things, it's difficult to win somebody over because it's just not appealing, and so we just have to do the work regardless. And so, right now, in fact, I just came here from another meeting where we're looking at API support in various browsers, and we're looking at what is the web using versus what is uniquely supported in individual browsers as proprietary stuff or something like that, maybe experimental implementations. And if you look at that graph, like the very front of it, all the most popular stuff is supported everywhere. All the major stuff is supported everywhere. There's a couple things that are only supported in other browsers, and some people make really fun demos with those. But the fact is, those aren't ready for the web today. No one is ready to build a business or stake their profit margins or anything on something like that. They don't have a real need. It's fun. It's really cool. Maybe it'll be ready tomorrow. And so it's having that constant communication with people. Trying to share data with them. I think just having that dialogue goes a long way, because those are difficult discussions to have. There's a lot of really exciting things that just qualitatively don't add up today for us to spend a whole lot of effort on.
What is the most annoying truism that you see keep getting repeated, and you have to tell people continuously, no, it's actually not that way?
I would say that IE is terrible, but like IE is kind of becoming a secondary thing. Although Edge adopted that from IE, and so now a lot of people just carry that over and they just assume that, well, Edge is just rose by a different name or something. It is IE just with a different name. And it's like, no, we've been doing amazing work here. Like we've ripped out tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of lines of code, put in more code. Edge has become more WebKit than IE ever was and stuff. We ripped out a lot of proprietary MS prefix stuff, added a whole bunch of WebKit prefix stuff for interop purposes. We have today the best ECMAScript 6 support among any other browser, and I think still any transpiler out there, which is really neat because transpilers have a lot of liberty and a lot of flexibility. And so, when you actually show people this stuff, you show them, hey, if you want to really kind of brush up on ES6, the ideal environment right now is Chakra. Like this has the most vibrant support, the most dominant support right now. And so the moment you show people that stuff, they kind of just blow their heads off and stuff, and they think this is the most amazing thing in the world. Like I had no idea. All of my presuppositions about IE and Edge and Microsoft are just kind of getting thrown out the window right now, because IE and Edge and Microsoft have been making some inways to really advance ourself and our craft and everything. And so we've actually really been pushing the boundaries. And it's something that, we've all been burned over the years. We've all spent hours and hours and hours, and IE 6, 7, and 8, and 9 a little bit too, trying to get things to work right. And we realize the gravity of that pain and agony that people feel. And it's burned people to the point where they just don't really want to take another look. And so it's, finding those opportunities to say, hey, have a look today. Edge provides a lot of opportunities for that. We can say this is a fundamentally different browser, which it is. And people realize that, yeah, it's all the things I remember, they're no longer true about this particular thing. They're still true about the old, remnant versions of IE that sometimes pop up on the web here and there, but they don't really apply to the Edge, in this day and age.
I think it's partly just a symptom of a general consensus that every question that you see on Stack Overflow and stuff, they always get the how answer immediately, not the why answer.
Yeah.
And that's the one that gets upvoted. How can we, because as a developer, I don't think it helps you to know the how without understanding what it does. That's why we have all these outdated libraries on the web. That's why people keep copying and pasting really terrible code. Mm-hmm. How can we break that spell? How can we make it easier for people to start listening more, and also dealing with an answer that is not a straightforward answer, but one that makes you think more, because that's what you learn from.
One of the cool things about web development in general, the thing that really allowed me to even get into this industry, is that it's saturated by amateurs, which is a unique thing about our industry. You don't have to go to college for 8 years to be a successful web developer. And one of the downsides of that is when you go out to find information, sometimes the quality or the level of that information is not at that academic level. And so on Stack Overflow, you get a lot of answers, a lot of questions answered very quickly. But again, like you're pointing out, there's that qualitative, different substrate of information that you're just never getting. Why is it this way? And so, there are individuals in the community like yourself and many others who have a rich amount of experience and background who can offer that insight. And one of the things that we're trying to do is build more resources to get that information to people. We had a couple phrases a while back, flavoring the well and welling the flavor and stuff. And when you go online, it's very easy to find mediocre information, oftentimes very outdated information. It's kind of shallow. And it's how do we go out and fix that information? How do we, bump this up to get it more accurate, modernized and stuff? And that's really difficult. And so the other option is, well, how do we create watering holes, new watering holes for people to come to that have really great information in there, really rich depth insight. And so we started over the years building things like status.modern.ie and user voice and places in which we can communicate with people. And MSDN has gotten a lot of bumps over recent time, having higher quality articles. The Edge blog and stuff allows people to get some deeper insight into why it is we do things a certain way, why certain standards are developing quicker than others and stuff like that. And so I think just having more of that conversation with the community is going really far as progress is concerned in that area.
Seeing how far you actually, how often you are online and how active you are, you must have grown quite a thick skin. How do you think can we work with the problems with trolls? Because there's a lot of new developers that come in, do something nice, get either shut down or get some really stupid advice from somebody, because for the lulz, it's great to actually see somebody do something stupid. How can we break that thing? And do you think it's really, is it that rampant? Is it? Do you see that it's going downhill with that, or do you see that it's really that much of a problem?
I kind of knew whenever I came to work at Microsoft that would be a thing. Who in their right mind would want to go work on IE, right? But I honestly, I rarely ever get upset with the trolls, because I don't think that they're, more often than not, I don't think they're intentionally opting into troll status. I think sometimes it's just, lacking education on their end, and not in an insult or anything. Browsers are really big, complicated pieces of software, and I don't think web developers, we're used to authoring projects that are hundreds, thousands of lines of code, and we understand how, what struggle comes in managing those types of projects in that size. And we assume that the same thing is true for web developers, or browser developers, rather. We think, well, I've built a website, I've contributed to jQuery core, I've also helped out with Modernizer. I know how hard software development is, and why can't you guys move as quickly as me and my friends do, And when you get into this and you start to look at, there's browsers out there that are open source that you can go look at the code and see just the immense amount of code in there, the size of the teams, the amount of scope that knowledge people have to make this stuff work. And when you start to get appreciation for that, you realize why things work the way they work in this industry. You have various standards organizations, representatives from different companies. They all have different ideas and stuff for how to move the web forward, and it's a complicated thing. And so, more often than not, whenever I encounter someone that would be maybe classified or in the taxonomy of a troll, is just try to impart a little bit of knowledge. This is a really, really hard thing we're doing. If you look at the history of the web and browsers in general, these are really difficult problems, and we could just gloss over the hard stuff, like accessibility and stuff. We could say, well, that's such a small percentage of the population and stuff, and we're just not going to worry about that. We're gonna deal with the vast majority of people.
It's like the fastest growing part of community, actually.
Yeah, well, and it's like that's just not how you do quality work. That's not how you serve human kind, and so it's a tough thing. Things move a little bit slowly sometimes. We're trying to identify ways in which they can move faster by things like web components and stuff like that. The idea of, okay, how within this shell or within this process that we've kind of adapted and adopted over the years, how can we identify as ways in which we can move things a little bit quicker so that we can satisfy the people who are wanting the cadence that they experience in their personal development to be reflected in the cadence of our development. And so we're finding ways. JavaScript allowed us that liberty. There's the CSS Houdini is a task force that is identifying ways in which maybe we can cause the CSS development to move quicker in the future. And so we're trying to identify solutions to these, which I don't think many of the trolls realize. They think that we're just kind of sitting here with sitting on our hands. And I think having a sincere, empathetic conversation with them and saying we understand what it feels like from your side. And we genuinely care, and we're trying to make this work a lot better, and we're hiring. So if you know a way to help make it go
okay,
even
let's
quicker.
stop with the advertising here for a second. I know from personal experience that you have a very creative Brazilian Portuguese as well.
Oh yeah.
And do you see? Do you also live in other environments than just the English-speaking American developer market? Do you see differences in worldwide markets? And is there something that we can learn here in America from them?
This is actually, it's a really interesting thing. So we lived in Brazil for a little while, and this is the whole idea that in the web today, we all want to develop the new, neat, shiny stuff, and we expect every browser to just support it. But that assumes that everybody with a machine is going to have the latest browser. And for instance, in Brazil, in the apartment building I was working in, they had a business center downstairs, and you go down there, and on their machines they have Ubuntu. I think maybe 4 years old, a version of Ubuntu that's about 4 years old, and they had like Firefox 4 or something on there, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I feel so bad for everyone who has to come down and use this, so I'm gonna just update Ubuntu and update Firefox for them, and I couldn't do it because I didn't have the credentials, and I went and asked the management, I'm like, do you guys have the credentials? I'll be happy to update all these machines for you. Like, no, we don't. Someone set that up a long time ago, and we don't have any information. So, but they work. So, check your email. And then we moved back to the States, and shortly after that, my second child was born a few months premature, and so we spent a few weeks in the hospital. And at the hospital, again, old machinery, old versions of Firefox, and we start to look at the world is not as we perceive it from within our fun offices and my new laptop and stuff. The real world out there is vastly more diverse, and there's a broad spectrum of browsers and operating systems and hardware and software capabilities, and oftentimes we just ignore that. We assume that the solution that I have of everyone's running Chrome 46 or Edge and stuff like this, We just assume that's the way things are, and we don't like the idea of it being any other way. We have this cognitive dissonance, I guess. And yeah, when you look at like places like Brazil and other countries, you know, quite often they're not running the most recent hardware or, you know, or software, and as a result, you know, they're not always getting the type of stuff that we're building, and we're blocking off whole demographics of people who otherwise would love to get our content and would love to you know, use our services and stuff. And just by assuming that, you know, our small you know, sphere here of what we experience is appropriate to you know, extrapolate across the whole, you know, world, we really do ourselves and everybody else a disservice, unfortunately.
Because there's lots of good information in developers like that have to work in an environment like that, because they have to optimize for the unknown and they have to optimize for the terrible, whereas we just discard it and say like, oh, nobody's out there anymore with these environments. So it's all about a communication, it's all about a conversation, and it's good that we have Jonathan out there as our firewall in Stack Overflow and other environments. So if you meet him, be nice to him, and I hope we have some good information for you.